Speaking of government tactics, I got pulled over by a cop.
Speaking of the government,
Yeah. Freaking government after my money.
I got pulled over by the police.
Yeah, so I was in...
Was this your beloved story time?
This is my beloved story time.
Yeah.
So I was in Goldendale, Washington.
Okay.
All right. Population of like 1.5. Right.
Less than Quincy?
Oh, it's tiny.
Okay.
All right. They have wineries and grapes.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, a fantastic museum. If you're into museums, they have a fantastic museum there. No idea why it's in Goldendale, population 1.5. Anyway, so I'm driving. I'm on my way over there, going up the highway. I don't even know what number it is, but it's on the Washington side of the Columbia River.
Okay.
And evidently I'm doing 74 and a 60. I don't know that it's 60. And I don't know that I'm doing 74. I just know that the cars are in front of me.
Uh-huh.
I'm going about the same speed. And
Yep, you're just moving with the flow of the traffic.
And then I looked at my rear view because I actually look at my rear views and side mirrors frequently.
Yeah.
I see a cop lights on. I'm like, oh, I better pull over so he can go around. And he pulls in behind me. I'm like, what the hell? All right. So pull over. I stop. He's in behind me. I'm like, oh, crap. All right. So I turn off the engine.
Sure, you said crap.
Yeah. I said, crap. Turn off the engine. Hands on the steering wheel, look at the side view mirror, making sure he's not pulling a gun on me. But no, he comes up and, in the end, I'll cut story time short. I got off with just a warning. Mm-hmm. Hey, pal, slow it down. I have theories on it, though.
You have a theory on why you got let off with just a warning?
Yes, I have 2 theories on it.
Okay.
One is more likely than the other.
Okay.
All right. So the unlikely one is I was actually polite and courteous to the cop when he came up.
Mm-hmm.
He told me that I was on camera because he had his body cam on and that kind of stuff. I'm not worried about it type of thing. And I had like my driver's license, my insurance card, and registration all readily available.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in my center console. And I know cops are kind of paranoid about, guns being pulled on them from center consoles or areas they can't see. So I was like, it's in the center console. I'm going to grab it. It's like, okay. So that's theory number one, because I had everything organized.
Because you didn't pull a gun on him. Right.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't pull a gun on him. So he let me off with a warning. The second theory, which I think is more likely, is as he was coming up, he looked at my license plate, and I have a frame around it that says U.S. Army 82nd Airborne Division.
Right.
And also that frame covers up the actual state that the tags are from.
Okay.
Kind of. So you can kind of see it, but so he has to look at it to see what state I'm from. Mm-hmm. And then he clarifies, South Carolina. I was like, yeah, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So now he knows I'm a vet.
Right.
Right. And I know
you're
a lot of vets.
And you're not from the state.
Right. A lot of vets become police officers and that kind of thing. And there's it's like police officers aren't exactly brothers. They're like a step brother.
Right.
Right. But we get along. And so I kind of feel that the more likely thing is that I was a vet. So he's leaning towards giving me a warning to begin with.
I have a third theory.
What's the third theory?
The third theory is that he came up, he saw your eyes, realized you couldn't help it, gave you a warning.
Oh, these poor Asian guys that just can't drive.
So, I don't have a big brain moment today, but I also have a story time.
Okay.
Very unlike yours. It went in a completely different direction. So the first time that I ever got pulled over was driving. We were in St. Cloud, Florida, which is a smaller suburb of... Suburb. It's like rural. It's a smaller suburb outside of the Orlando area and smaller city. And was driving there. It was driving me and my sister and one of our friends to church youth group. So...
Gangster.
Yeah, gangster. I think I was 16, 17, something like that, right?
Adolescent.
Yeah, not long after I got my
Prime
license.
troublemaking years.
Yep, prime troublemaking years as we're driving to church group. So And I was a huge like church boy at the time,
Church nerd.
right? Like never do anything wrong, like keep to myself, blah blah blah, whatever, right?
You're like, oh, can I pass out the wafers? Can I pass out?
Yeah,
the
literally,
wafers?
we were going there early because I helped them set up, but prior to, so like we're going there early right now.
Aren't you sweet?
I know. So, so we're driving there, and there's, you know, we're driving, and like I see these lights behind me, so I pull over, right, and 2 cop cars go whizzing past with their lights on, going to
Who knows?
whatever they were called to, right? And the third one pulls up behind me. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And I don't know what I did, but he comes up, he comes to the window, and he's like, "Did you see those cop lights behind you?" It's like, "Yeah." "Did you hear the sound?" It's like, "Yeah." And I moved over, and he's like, "Well, we were behind you for quite a long time. You know it's illegal to not move out of the way when we're trying to go to, you know, wherever they're going." I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "License and registration." So I give him, you know, I did what you did, right? I'm like, "Hey, it's in the glove compartment. Is it okay?" It's like, "Yeah." Reach over, grab it.
And you shot him with the gun that was there.
Right. And I shot him with the Bible. No, and I hand him my license and registration, and he looks at the license. He's like, "You know, they give you these because," he was basically like, "You know, they give you these because it means that you know how to drive and you can follow the law." I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, I'll be right back." Walks back. He's like, "Here's your ticket. Sign here." He's like, "Have a good day." What the So I also tried to, I don't know if like dumb is the right word, but I was like, that was stupid. I'm going to get out of this. So I actually went to the court for it, right? But obviously that didn't go anywhere. I actually just got a larger fine and then the ticket.
They can't give you a larger fine. You
Yeah,
just have-
they added a
court
fine.
costs.
Yeah, they added the court cost plus the fine of
Right.
the ticket,
Mhm.
right? And then on top of that, they added instead of it being like instead of you having like the choice on whether or not you're gonna do like the driving school that gets rid of like points on your license or whatever, they added a mandatory driving class.
Oh,
So I went to the court office, as is my right, and I got a fine for the court office, a mandatory driving class, and the ticket.
you should have peeled that. It's like, I know it's only $300, but I'm going to spend 12,000 of your
But yeah,
taxpayer dollars for this.
It went completely different. We have good friends of ours in the in St. Cloud that used to be like police officers, and they were retired, and they were telling us that I guess in that St. Cloud area they get a lot of new police officers that are like brand new,
Assholes.
right out of school, right? And they have a name. They literally say that the new police officers they come out with a God complex, and like that's how they act when they come through, especially being brand new, because they haven't been, there's nothing that's knocked them down yet, right?
Like, oh, look at you. A bright, shiny, dicky penis.
Right. Yeah. The cop, by the way, was very typical like movie asshole cop, like hair like mine, dark, big, like the big shades or whatever, sunglasses.
What's some bad advice?
This is some bad advice.
Yeah, some bad advice.
Pull
So
the gun.
I should write a whole book of Mike King's, book of bad advice. After he gives you the ticket, just let loose on him. Just let loose on him. It's like, So basically, these 2 cops are off to save a person from being raped, and you thought this was more important.
That was my thought. I was like, what was so important that you had to stop? In my head, if it was really that important, you wouldn't have stopped.
Those other guys are going to kick your ass when you get back for stopping for this thing.
Well, so what I think was so that we were like kind of in bumper stop and go traffic or whatever in the main city area. And what I think they just had their lights on to cut through the traffic.
Oh.
And then that guy was just the dick that was like, oh, he's not moving fast enough. Let me pull him over.
So how long did he say he was behind you?
He didn't give me a time. He just said we were behind you for quite a while.
All right. You know what cops like to hear after you get the ticket? You're a fucking line, you cocksucker.
I'm sure they do. I don't know what the legal time frame is to move out of the way, but I don't think there is actually a
So
defined
he
time.
actually showed up to court when you went to contest it?
No, he wrote a statement that another cop read,
Oh.
and that's what they accepted. I was like, okay.
He's a dirty liar who lies. That's a false statement, and I wanted to press charges for finding a false statement against that police orifice.
Yeah. So judge took his word over mine, or the cop's word, or the
But
state,
you're
or
a white
whatever.
17-year-old. You're a dirty liar anyway.
Right. So yeah, completely different situation.
Yeah.
The second time I got a ticket, it was very similar, and it was for speeding, and it went basically the same way.
How old were you then?
Probably like 20, 21, something like that.
Yeah, it's still 17,
Again.
21. It's the same thing.
Again, coming from church. I was on my way back from church. I was speeding.
The devil is trying to prevent you from going to church.
Yeah, I was speeding, and he
That's
was
what they
under a
say in
bridge.
the Bible. It's like, be sure to break the laws of man.
Right. Break the law right before or after church. Yep. And there was no like being polite or talking or where you're going. It was
Because when you're 21, you probably look like you're still 17 anyway.
yeah,
Baby face.
for sure. I still look like I'm 17.
Like, just some punk kids don't get any breaks.
Right.
So
So those are
Yeah.
my experiences.
breaking the law.
Yep.
It's weird because just in my lifetime, just the laws are like, now you have to wear the seatbelt and a helmet, and you have to have the three-point thing and driving gloves, and it has, there's so many laws nowadays, right? It's like my
I
dad,
think you're talking about NASCAR.
my dad, when I was a kid, windows up in the wintertime, cigarette in mouth, one hand on the steering wheel, changing the 8-track cassette tape that he's,
Yeah.
in the car. Meanwhile, I'm riding shotgun, no seatbelt on whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's like, but nowadays, if you try to do that,
Yeah, it's very different now.
yeah, they pull you over, they break the windows to save the kid. And it's like, the door's open.
Yep, that's true. That probably wasn't a thing, huh? Like, illegal to leave your kid in the car or anything like that. Yeah.
Heck no. It was one of those, oh, you want to act up in the cereal aisle? We're going to take you to the car.
And just put you in there. Yeah.
I
Yep.
remember a time my brother, sister, and I were in the back of the pickup truck. We had the camper on it, but we're in there waiting for my parents to go to the grocery store and come back out. And we're just waiting and waiting. And then the Frito-Lay guy showed up to deliver stuff, and he saw us in there and felt bad for us and gave us all a little small bag of chips.
Yep. Nope. Not now. Now you can legally break into someone's car or whatever to get the
Yeah.
child or pet out.
Yeah. There's a cat. It's like, okay, so there's not a window worth breaking to save a cat.
So now things have changed even more, right? Because now there's a lot of cars that literally have so I know Teslas, for example, they have like a pet mode where it's basically you set it in there, it displays it on the screen, displays the temperature, and keeps the car cool the entire time. And so it's really funny because I've watched people walk by and you can see all of like the old like boomer folk, they get really nervous that a pet is in the car. And they're like, no, like, the car's cooling, it says it on the screen. I watched one people basically, they made this lady leave the restaurant and like go get her animal because she was like grabbing coffee or whatever. And they made her go back outside, and they're like, no, you need to leave. We don't like that you're leaving your pet in the car. It was like some mom and pop, like coffee place or whatever. So
I don't like the way you look. What's the difference? I still come to your store.
But yeah, laws have definitely changed. Not allowed to smoke. There's some states where you're not allowed to smoke in the car at all. And there's others where, you can't smoke with the windows rolled up when you got kids in the car, which might be the right choice. But
Oh, yeah.
but it is kind of crazy how much they've changed just, in the time span of like when you were driving a car or when you first started driving a car versus when I first started driving a car.
Yeah. I remember the speed limits were different also.
Like less or the same, but more suggestions than enforcement.
It was varied. So like some states had no speed limit. It's like, fuck it, do what you got to do, you know. And then it was the, oh my God, there's a fuel shortage. The peak efficiency is 55 miles an hour. So all speed limits on highways are going to drop down to 55 miles an hour to save on gas and that type of thing. And so you could be the only one on an interstate within 100 miles, and it's like 55 miles an hour. But I think cars are designed, and now they're actually more efficient at a different speed these days.
Yeah, most cars are extremely efficient at like 70 miles an hour. And the weird part is that there is that argument out there where a lot of people think that speed limits should be adjusted because the way they calculate like the speed limit is not based on most cars that are on the road today. It's based on like older models that didn't necessarily have the same like traction or capabilities on the road.
So it was like the speed limit at 55 was actually a fuel thing. And then when the fuel crisis ended, they decided to make it a safety thing. But then the cars are built, the technology changed and cars are built to be much safer. And then it's still a fight to change that speed limit from 55. But yeah, I like 70, 80 miles an hour. Like in North Dakota, there's 80 mile an hour zones.
Well, and it's depending on the state, like the speed. So like in Florida, if you're on I-4, unless you're
Tampa,
it goes from west to east.
Okay,
that's the main interstate running through, and unless you're going 90 miles an hour, you're not going to get pulled over. Basically, the speed limit is 70, and anything between like 70 and 85 is perfectly fine. They don't even touch you unless you're going 90, 95.
I was noticing that because I was doing like 10 over, and I was just getting past. I feel like I'm the asshole.
Right? Yeah. Most cops won't even pull you over if you're going 10 over. I think it's just because you were in bum middle of nowhere that you got pulled over.
I think that a lot of these policing laws, as far as traffic and that kind of, it's just a money making scam these days. Seattle cops are horrible. I was tailgating for a football game, right? And we're up against this construction fence, and people were parked there tailgating, so we found a spot, pulled in. Cop came by, said hello to all of us and that kind of thing. No big deal. Then we all leave to go to the game because it's getting close to kickoff. We come back. Every single vehicle has a parking ticket on it for parking next to a construction fence. And the sign that says no parking is actually on the other side of an RV, so you can't actually see it. But
right.
The cop could have just told us, hey, you can't park next to a construction fence. But no, his actions showed that it was okay to be there, and then bam, ticket.
The worst part about it is the cop's never there when you actually need him. You see the drunk driver or the idiot swerving in and out of traffic. He never gets pulled over, but the guy tailgating at the event where nobody's working at the construction site going to the football game, you're going to get the ticket.
When you get back from your trip and come back, we'll put that to the test. I'll drive sober, you drive drunk. And we'll see who gets pulled over.
Yeah, that'll go over super well. Oh goodness. So what is a law that you didn't have when you were younger? Let's call it like teens, that I had when I was a teen, that you feel like is the craziest addition, like doesn't make any sense, you don't really see any justification for it?
Wow. That's a tough one. Trying to think of all the stupid laws that are out. Do you have one in mind?
No.
Oh yeah, put me on the spot.
Yeah, this is purely educational. I don't know. I
personally am an advocate for seatbelt use, but I'm not an advocate for seatbelt laws and even motorcycle helmet laws.
So to me, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think we've taken too much accountability from the individual.
Mhm.
And I think when you buy insurance for health, they ask if you smoke cigarettes, if you drink, and that kind of stuff, right? And if you say yes, you're going to pay a certain premium that is more than if you said no.
Right.
Right. If they did the same thing with your driver's insurance, if you say, I don't wear my seatbelt, I don't wear a helmet, they're going to say, okay, well, your rates are going to be this because you're a much higher risk. And then if you say, yes, I wear a seatbelt, and then you get an accident and you're not wearing a seatbelt, you're just not covered.
Right.
Right.
Well,
I think that's the way to go about it.
That's what I was going to say too, right? So I feel like we do that a lot as a society where we're, for whatever reason, we get super worried about the individual where their action is not going to harm anybody else but themselves. And so to me, the law is that way for seatbelts because of insurance and has nothing to do with any other justification, right? Like, we want to keep you safe, so we implement this law. And I don't think that's actually the case. They're just tired of scraping up bodies or, whatever. and it's costing money to do that. So, and insurance is probably tired of paying out for people getting more hurt than if they were wearing a seatbelt. But yeah, I mean, to me, like, I think it should be if you're a minor and, like, let's say you're a parent and you have kids, they're minors, then it should be illegal for you to not make them wear a seatbelt because they can't make that choice yet. They don't get to, they need to stay safe, whatever, right?
Their frontal lobe isn't fully developed.
Right. But you as a parent can choose whether or not to wear a seatbelt. And under the same circumstances that you just said,
right.
if you mark on your insurance, hey, don't wear a seatbelt, whatever, your insurance premium is higher. If you were caught and it's found out in the investigation of an accident that you weren't wearing a seatbelt, sucks to suck. You don't get coverage. And, but I think they should still make you enforce it for your kids because, they can't legally consent to their insurance checks
right.
and all that stuff. And, and give them the choice when they're 18 or whatever it is. But
yeah, 18.
Or maybe 16 when you can legally start driving.
I think 25 because there's actually some laws now that I kind of agree with. Like when you're 16, you first get your license. It's one of those, okay, you got your license, but you can't drive after dark.
Yeah.
Right. Then in 17, you can do that. You can't drive with more than one other person under
I think
this
it's state.
age.
I think it's varies by state or whatever
But it's one of those. I get it, right? I don't want 4 16-year-olds driving in a car at 1 o'clock in the morning. Nothing good is coming out of that situation. So I understand those laws and I approve of them. They're not, at 16, you're not best suited for making good decisions. You're best suited for making impulsive decisions that seems like it's going to be pretty fun at the time.
Right.
I don't know how many times I said, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. Yep. Every day at work. Okay. So, I guess going the other way, what's a law that has been implemented that between our two generations that you feel like is probably one of the most important ones?
Important ones? I don't know. I'm really not a pro-law kind of a person. I'm more of a libertarian. So the more laws there are, the more cringe it is.
You using that word is cringe, but but all right.
There's probably some law, I don't know what it's been called, but with the advent of technology and internet, some of those internet stalker laws, particularly the ones that gets like the minors into a chat room with an adult and bad things happen. So those kind of monitoring laws, maybe that.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly I'm just like, less power to the government, more power to the people.
Mm-hmm. Well, some laws are people inspired.
Well, yeah, my personal thing is I think the neighborhood should have the strongest governance and gets weaker the further away.
Yeah. The other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But everybody wants to go to the Fed. I get a lot of it is because it'd be tough to have one law on your block. Like, it's like our block says you can't wear red shoes because, this is a Crip neighborhood. And when you don't, your red is the blood color. Then you walk in that neighborhood and now you're wearing red shoes. Like, that's against the law. Now you're arrested and you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, I get your point though. Maybe not so specific to just the neighborhood, but I get your
community.
Point. Yeah.
But even like city to city, you do need some consistency.
Yeah.
City to city.
Yeah.
And you do need consistency nationwide for certain things.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're not really a united country. You're just a bunch of tiny countries.
But it should be the strongest. I think really it should be strongest in the household. It's not necessarily law, but family rules. But I think the family unit should be the strongest unit, and then work from there.
Work outwards. Yeah.
Like in times of need, you turn to mom and dad, right? Or if you are mom and dad and you have need, you turn to your community.
Yeah. Maybe that's
your neighbor. Ideally, your neighbors, but we're not in that society anymore. But
we are
turn to your neighbor, your community, your city. If the city can't help, you go to county. County can help, you go to state. Then from state to Fed.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk to their neighbors.
I know,
including myself.
But when your house is on fire, you sure want them to get involved, don't you?
Nope, let it burn.
And then they complain, nobody was here to help me. It's like,
yeah.
Didn't talk to. Like, I wish we were closer as a nation. Like, but I don't want to talk or take any actions to become closer as a nation.
No, I don't want anyone to touch me.
I want to be touched all the time.
Well,
you might need to edit that out.
They have other people. Nope. The things you say against yourself are all you. Just gonna leave that in. Yeah. Goodness gracious. I want to be touched all the time. Our viewers aren't gonna figure out how to read you. Half the time you want to tell this serious rant, dad story moment, and the other half the time you're talking about how much you want to be touched.
Hey, I'm an onion. I have many layers.
Yeah. More like dark and light side of the moon. They're just
a rotten onion, all right? It's dark on the inside.
There's some mold growing in there. Maybe some new onions sprouting out. Oh, man. Well,
what laws do you dislike right now? Gen Zer, Zoomer.
What laws that I dislike?
Yeah.
Well, this isn't the right state to be complaining about it in, but I don't think that marijuana should be illegal nationally. I feel like that it's I wouldn't know, but I feel like the effect is minimal or comparable to people drinking. And so I think I'd rather just the state make money off of it at this point, because most people are doing it illegally anyways, or most people are doing like some Delta 8 version of it in most states that there's no way for the state to tax or make any money on or anything like that. And
I disagree with you a little. All right. The legal reason is I don't think you should be smoking weed and building a house.
No,
a resident, right?
No, right.
And so there is no test that you can take to determine if a person has THC active in their system or if it's from 2 days.
Yeah, without doing like a piss or a blood test or something. There's no like there's no thing you can blow into to
Right,
tell
like
how high
alcohol.
you are at
Right.
the
So
time. Right.
so there's a formula for alcohol.
Right.
You know, it's basically every hour you go down 0.01, so you can kind of deduce
Yeah.
what the last time they had a drink and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
There's nothing like
yeah.
that for marijuana now, so you don't know if they're high right now or if they're high yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so if something happens incident-wise
Mm-hmm.
and they pop positive, it may or may not have been a factor.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just assume that it's a factor and you're fired because it's illegal at the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
I think whoever invents that device that can nail it
Yeah,
down
will be the key.
to,
Yeah.
you know, how recent is something to take your savings account and invest in that company.
Right.
So that's the reason why we get, and that's why it's a small argument because of workplace and that type of thing. But another thing is, even in states like Washington State that it is legal, there's still a lot of illegal marijuana and drug busts for marijuana and that kind of stuff. I just hate the stench of it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
that's fair.
you drive down neighborhoods in this state and it just stinks, and I don't want to live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And if everybody's doing it across this country is going to have a stench about it.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing to have because it was such a huge, like, tobacco and marijuana were such huge exports at the beginning of creating the United States and establishing the money making. And so it's just, I don't know, it's weird where we start to draw the line between things that are illegal and legal. And to me, I think sometimes it's a little off. I also don't like the current age law for alcohol. I think that it would be okay if you level set everything else, like you being an adult, being able to choose to go fight for your country, things like that, but no drinking. To me, it's a little far.
Yeah. So I kind of had an idea about it because I first think all the rights should just like change it to 25 now. Since they made it that you can stay on mom and dad's insurance plan until you're 25, we're just going to shift everything to 25. And then from there, we're going to say, if you have an active duty military ID card, you can drink, vote, smoke, do whatever, because you're willing to put your life on the line for this, right? So that type of thing. And so I believe we should give.
Well, 25 scientifically actually makes, there's some sort of basis for the reasoning, right?
Because that's the brain fully develops at the age of 25. And then give special privileges to soldiers. I personally think that citizenship should be meaningful, and you should have rights as a citizen that you don't have as a non-citizen also. So that's just me. I mean, but like voting, that's a right you get as a citizen that non-citizens don't have. Except now places are fighting to make it legal for non-citizens to vote. And I'm like, then what's the point of being a citizen? And then, okay, I'm on my... Then becomes this whole one world order, globalism, and that kind of crap, which I'm against.
Here we go.
It only took him 28 minutes and 32 seconds.
That's the perfect time to end it. Here he goes projecting again. Him and his non-citizenship over there.
Hey, at one point in time, I was a dual citizen.
Yeah?
Vietnam and America.
Dual samurai swords.
Exactly. I could hurt myself 2 times.
I can do illegals in 2 places. Well, that's a podcast.
That's a podcast.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Click all the thingies. Do all the thingies.
Yeah, comment and stuff. Peace be the journey.
Peace be with Michael.